Hi, Sarai.
Hi.
Dad, what's up? All right. Well, I thought this would be a great opportunity just to kind of talk about our work and the world. And I know you've been doing lots of stuff with altar making and magic making, and we're putting together this event with the ancestors.
Yeah.
And I think, as I like tune into this season and do my own work, connecting in with my loved ones who have passed, I don't know. I'm just like curious if you want to share a little bit about your work with the ancestors and why you think people need the ancestors. I mean, why do you think that we? Why do you think that we need them?
That's funny. Where do I start with all of that? I maybe just talking presently, and just because of the season and the apparent thinness of the veil, although I recall seeing just a post from somebody, and of course, I think to those of us who are maybe a little more sensitive, the veil is always thin, but this is such a special and potent time for those who don't otherwise consider communing with their ancestors or connecting with them, and so there is this like extra like oomph of energy right now it's so exciting, because they're like excited that people are paying attention or paying attention to them, that want to connect with them. And I know, just even tuning in this moment, that they're like, hey, we're here all the time. We're accessible all the time. And so why would you want to connect with your ancestors? Well, there are many ways to answer that, but a lot of that could start with to know where you came from, to know why you are the way you are, that our ancestors brought us to this moment. We wouldn't be here without them, for all of the gifts that flow through us, as well as the challenges that we've inherited from them as well. So we have the opportunity to really embrace those inherent gifts that we receive from them. That's like medicine we carry like deep in our bones and our DNA. It's a part of who we are and part of our lineage and our family story, our family history. And then another reason to want to connect with our ancestors is because they want to also help heal our wounds and lineages and all that we've inherited in that respect as well. All those patterns that we perpetuate that we don't even think about, that are sort of just part of who we are as well. Those little subtle pieces that sometimes can get in the way. And maybe that's fear, but we don't know where the fear comes from. Why are we afraid? What are we afraid of? What is that thing that's holding us back from stepping into our full selves, our full power, our full gifts? There's those little, I'm going to say, like hindrances, those little questions of like, well, what if, why do I have those questions? Why do I have that fear? Where did that come from? If not from me, did I inherit that? Is it actually mine? And so our ancestors can be really helpful in helping us and helping to reveal those patterns and helping us to heal them and helping us to have compassion. Really, that's compassion's really up for me right now, and compassion for myself and the work that I'm personally doing. And so I bring that to my ancestors. And when I'm doing healing work for myself and healing parts of myself that I know are a result of my relationships with my family, then I don't know, the ancestors I feel can be really helpful in finding that compassion for those, because they get it. They see with a different set of eyes than we see the world with. It's true. They see like 360 degrees, like across time and space and dimensions, if we want to completely go there. And so they have a different point of view. They have a different perspective that we can't see from. And so they can see and point to certain areas that need illuminating, that need love, that need compassion, that need healing, and that might even need a little fierceness and protection. So they're really, it's such a broad spectrum to speak to.
Yeah.
But right now they're just excited. They, you know, our ancestors, I would say 99.9% of the time want to help. They're here to help. They want to assist. And I know we sometimes have ancestors we haven't had healthy relationships with, or our ancestors or parents or grandparents didn't have healthy relationships with. And even they, again, having a different perspective, can take a look over and go, ooh, that I didn't do so well with that, did I? How can I help? How can I make it up? How can I shift that part of the lineage so that our ancestors to come don't have to carry that burden, which is ultimately the goal. Or at least that's certainly where I'm at. It's just like, as our ancestors to come, our children and our children's children carry our lineage forward, what can we do so that their way is easier? What can we heal so that they don't have to work so hard? And that's the work I'm really excited about.
I mean, that's the work that gives us purpose, you know, which is something we're all looking for, I think.
Yeah, totally.
As we do a lot of soul searching on what's going on the planet and things like that. But that is awesome. That was like a lot of information. I was trying to take notes, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to go back on the video.
It's the ancestor fire burning back here, just kind of.
That's some good reasons right there, you know, like, okay, you know, just take one of those and I think I'm ready to go, you know. So, and so like, what do you want to share, like what brought you into this work a little bit? Because I'm curious, you know, I'm always curious. I know I've heard a lot of your stories, but
and where do I, you know, I don't think I knew what I was looking for when I was looking for it. And I could even dial it back to like childhood of just, you know, I think we all come in sensitive and then life happens and we have to rediscover that connection for ourselves. And you know, so where do I start? You know, I was searching for something. I knew something was missing. I didn't know what that was or what that looked like. And so to come across this work, it definitely was a surprise to me. And so it was part of an internship that I was doing, which also ended up being my first introduction to shadow work. And so the supervisor I was working with in this internship, we were working in a hospital and we were kind of going in to work with the patients and working with what came up for us. So we would have like our own triggers. If something about their story or about their condition or about who they are triggered a response within us, we brought that back to the group and processed it so that the next time we walked into that situation, we were being present to the person in the room rather than going inward to our trigger and having a reaction. And so our supervisor used many different tools to help us work through our stories. And so that was my introduction to connecting with the ancestors. That was my introduction to ritual in this particular way that I ended up learning it. But what was also my introduction to Melodoma Somé. And the internship there's more pieces to it, but there was my part of the internship was a part of a greater group. And so we did a sort of a day-long retreat in which Melodoma was brought to do a day-long with us, to do a little retreat. And so the morning part was a bit of talk and introduction to who he is. And then the afternoon was creating shrines to the elements. And basically we were in ritual space. I don't even know for how long, but I know Melodoma was drumming through it all while we kind of went through the space and visited all of the shrines and had our own experience. And I remember looking over at one point while everyone was kind of focused over here, I looked over and Melodoma was just like in deep trance and deep communion with the ancestors, seeing what we can't see. Like he was not in the room exactly with us. And I remember that really struck me. And I went home that night and dreamt and dreamt and dreamt and dreamt and woke up the next morning and the ritual was still going for me. Actually, it's bringing you up a lot. And so, I kind of went on my own journey. Uh, I left my house in San Francisco, walked all in the Mission, and walked all the way to Golden Gate Park, sat by the water, walked all the way home, got in the tub, and just cried and bawled and bawled. I was like, I don't know what entirely cracked open in me in that moment, but it was what I would say was my first like spiritual experience. And again, not knowing what was going on, all I know is that the answer was yes. And so that was the beginning of that journey and of that cracking open and of that healing, beginning like to look at, again, as we kind of go bring it back around a little bit to the shadow work of like unpacking all of my stuff. Not that there's really an end to that. And going into that healing work with the ancestors. And that was really through this work, I've healed things within myself that I thought were just part of who I was forever, that I didn't think would ever shift, would ever change. And it sort of feels like a miracle to me in a lot of ways, that any of that would change in the way that it has. And there's still stuff, and we all have stuff, and I'm human, and you know, and that's a real thing for all of us, that we have our human stuff that we have to deal with, and that always needs tending and always needs love. And that's where I just, whenever I come back home to the ancestors, whenever I come back home to the altar and to the fire, which I need to poke a little bit, I feel held, I feel taken care of, I feel nourished and nurtured and listened to and heard and supported. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I, just to add to that, I love hearing you say all of those things, because it reminds me of how much it is a missing link, to many of our lives, and just how much, we keep death and like the other side, like as a part of, it's just something else. It's not part of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
And of course, today is Day of the Dead, which is kind of funny. That we're doing this spontaneously, may I add, on Day of the Dead. But there's just like so many other cultures that make it, an important part of their life, and they have celebrations and they have ways to commune. And it's not only just like through grieving; it's through celebrating. And I just wanted to add that in to what you had just said.
Totally.
It's one of the reasons I feel drawn to the work as well. And just with I'd like to share a little about my own experience too. And doing the work and knowing, my mom had passed early on in my life, when I was a teenager. So that really opened me to my spiritual work in the world, and like in the biggest way possible. And I was just like, where did she go? You know what I mean? Yeah. And that was my mission, was just to be like, okay, there's something else that I don't know, that no one ever told me about. And it's something that we don't talk about, it's just like, when they're gone, and you just go on with your life. So that like pull and that drive to always know a little bit more is what has brought me to this, really deep spiritual work. Mm-hmm. And I'm just really honored to be in this space right now after 20 something years of doing the work, and then I found you, and a sister soul that is like totally just activated and has the ability to bridge that, your gifts to, into this world in many ways, in the many ways that you do. So I'm so excited to share this journey with you, and also share it with the world. So, is there anything else you want to say? I'm going to close up because I want to keep it a little bit, like I want people to want to know more, and just give them a little bit so that they'll join us for our event, and get to know us even more. There's more to learn. There's so much to learn.
So much, and it's an exciting journey to embark on, and yeah, I was just sharing with somebody that it actually takes a lot of courage to say yes to your ancestors, to say yes to this work. It's a door that once opened is not so easy to close.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it's so worth the journey. It's so worth the journey. That's all I can say, is my life is completely different because of it,
Mm-hmm.
in all amazing and wonderful ways, in ways that make me happy, in ways that I hope others feel better about it as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I think it makes life more full, you know,
Yeah.
um,
There's
in
a
essence.
fullness to it for sure.
Like there's a bigger party to be had when we add them in. So should I say that? I mean, I know there's always
Speaking of
healing
which,
there.
and they like a good party. They like a
To work
cocktail or two.
there's also a party on the other side, and I feel like, once the crossover happens and once we've
Mm.
like, done a lot of the healing, it really is a celebration. So
Oh, totally, and ever more so. Um,
and I'm looking
yeah.
forward to so our event is coming up on the 11th of November,
Yes.
11. And so we'll send out information via a link, and also include your website so people can
Thank
get
you.
in touch with you and
And
ring the
yours.
bell with questions. And there'll be an Eventbrite registration page too if you want to sign up for the event. So looking forward to discovering and hearing some more about the ancestors. And we'll be doing you'll be doing an invocation.
Mm-hmm. An invocation, yes, to welcome in the actual ancestors, to welcome in the ancestors, the actual ancestors, and hear from them a little more time. To hear from them directly and to receive their wisdom. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited. They're excited.
we'll be answering some questions too, and it'll be about an hour, maybe a little over an hour.
Hour-ish.
We'll see how it goes, but we'll try and keep it at an hour.
Awesome.
Yeah, we
Okay.
will be in touch. Thanks, Sarai.
Thank you, Miss Jazz.
Log off now.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
I mean,